This nibble originally aired on RSBANDB Update 776, Shane's Burner Phones. Enjoy. And, a really interesting thing, and, they were like, hey, let's tease what's happening with the Ninja team. And he said they're looking at things like the Grand Exchange and parts of the user interface. Like, oh, really? Finally?
UI, huh?
Yeah. Working with UX people and whatnot. And, it's actually a perfect time to mention this because this week we published Cireon's Informer article about what if RuneScape's UI was consistent. And, what?
Well, what if frogs had wings? They wouldn't bump their ass on lily pads. We'll never know.
And he says there isn't a consistent way that the UI is designed. You need to relearn how each interface works, what each button does. And he says it has a massive impact on your day-to-day life. And the example he gives is if you use Windows, that you can always close the current window in the top right. Most programs are going to have a file menu where you can find your regular options of save and load and whatnot. And what he does in this article, and, I think it'd be really interesting to have a look at this and see if any of this ever comes to fruition. He goes through some of the user interfaces in the game, like focusing in on the bank rework as one of them, and some of the hints and patterns that brings forward, and then extends that out to different variants of buttons. And what he did with his article is that he actually went through some of the user interfaces, like the Make X interface, and changed some of the button styles so that they would be consistent with the paradigms that were previously established. He also did the same thing with the mining and smithing interface, and the example he gave is that if you look at the clan interface where you see your clan list, like the people who are currently in the clan chat channel, all those buttons at the bottom are aligned to the left. So he said, okay, what if you then do the same thing with the mining and smithing interface, with the inventory interface? So he aligned all of these different ones to the left and gave them a unique style associated with it. He also brought forward a new style of buttons that should be used because he rightly made the assertion that every time you see a yellow button in-game, it should be used as a quick action to use the spacebar because that's the go-to thing in, the Make X interface. You press the spacebar, it carries out the command that you want, right? And if you press the spacebar when you're viewing dialogue, it moves you on beyond the next piece of dialogue. So with that, he said that any yellow button should be a cue to the player that when you press that button, it will respond based on your spacebar. So as a result of this, other interfaces like the VisWax interface have been redesigned, as have been some of the challenge interfaces, as has been the Grand Exchange. He's also brought in a new font that's similar to what we see in the bank system and so on and so forth. And with this is what you can kind of expect and what you would expect to see if they did an end-round look of how the interface of RuneScape looked from a stance of design consistency. And, I figured this was a good time to bring this up because they were talking about interfaces in the Grand Exchange. So if you want to read our take on that, or in particular Cireon's take on that, you can find a link in the show notes to this article, What If RuneScape's UI Was Consistent, at update.rsbnb.com. And, I think everybody should give this a read because it's actually really interesting, and it's in such a way that it'll just make sense. So give that a read at informer.rsbnb.com.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
Cireon really comes through again.
And you know what the funny part is? 5-6 years ago, even a decade ago, I would be the kind of person to write this article. But we've just brought people on who are able to do all these things and more that they kind of just happen organically. So I was really pleased to see that article from Cireon. So give that a read. What if RuneScape's UI was consistent? You can watch full episodes of RSBANDB Update right here on this YouTube channel. You can also listen to audio versions of RSBANDB Update at update.rsbnb.com, and feel free to subscribe to our show and any number of podcast listeners out there at update.rsbnb.com/subscribe.